Hello, Our Lady of Fatima, and everyone who's watching. This is Father John again, coming to you about the third Sunday of Lent, and we're shooting from a different location because we're just that dynamic. I would need to talk to you about the two options of readings that we have this Sunday. The reason that we have two options is we have the regular option from Year B, and then we can take Year A, which is for those who are becoming Catholic. And what we're starting to experience during Lent is the scrutinies. I will get to that in the second part of my talk. Most of the masses are going to use the regular option B for readings. And what we see in these readings is Jesus get angry, and he starts making a whip and turning over tables and everything like that. And the first thing that usually comes to people's minds is, why is Jesus getting angry? He's Jesus, he's God. Does God get angry? Is that okay? And the answer is absolutely yes. There's such thing as righteous anger. In fact, when we see real or perceived injustice, we can't help but get angry. Okay? So if you're trying to control that, you're not going to be able to, right? And so initial anger, that's just something that happens to us. The problem starts with our reaction to that initial anger. So what are we going to do with it? And it can start becoming sinful when we start to get resentment, bitterness, and then hatred. It's a step, right? It's this process. But Jesus doesn't do that. He's just got this initial anger. And why is that? Well, we're going to take St. John Paul II's advice, and we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of creation. And I always ask this question with Adam and Eve. What nation are they from? Yeah, they don't have a nation, right? What race are they? Oh, yeah, I always say they're Irish. But anyway, no, they're not a race. What political party do they belong to? Nothing. They're simply God's creation, all right? All that other stuff forms afterwards over time, all right? God has created them simply to give them everything and to be in a relationship with them. Now we know what happens. They fall, they sin. And after that, we've got all these different nations and races and this, that, and the other thing. And God has to pick a certain people that he's going to give the law to. And the reason that he's doing that, all the drama of the Old Testament, is so that one day this particular people can be the means by which he blesses the rest of the world. Okay? Now, this is why Jesus gets angry, because when he goes into the temple, there's a place in the temple for the Gentiles, for everyone who's not Jewish. All right? And this is a place where they can go and they can worship God. And a lot of people are doing this, actually. They're trying to find God, and they're finding out that their own systems aren't working. And so that's as close as they can go. They can't go any closer to where God is, right? They can only go to these outer parts of the temple where the Gentiles are able to worship. And what Jesus sees is that they've turned these places into markets, all right? And that's what angers him. It gives him this righteous anger. And so that's why he makes a whip, and he starts just turning over tables and telling people to stop it. It's like, this is my Father's house. Right? And that's important. And this is going to show us three things. And the most important thing is that we'll get to is in continuity with the other readings that we have. It has to do primarily with identity. So remember, 2 weeks ago, we have the baptism of Jesus before he goes into the desert. He receives his identity, like all of us. Now, Jesus knew who he was, obviously, but everything Jesus does, he does for our example. We receive our identity at baptism as beloved sons and daughters of the Father. And then that gives us what we need to go out into the desert and to be purged of all the false gods. All right? And that's what Lent is all about. And then, last week we read about the transfiguration. What's given in a name and in a face. All right? And so we have to get to know who we really are. We have to get back to our baptismal identities. And Jesus reveals who he really is in the Transfiguration. And then this week we see when there is injustice or unrighteousness going on, that Jesus acts with a righteous anger. Okay? And he's like, no, this is my Father's house. We don't do this in my Father's house. Also, further with that, we also see that he is upsetting the worship system as it is, because he is the new worship system. He is the new temple. He is the new sacrifice. Okay? Because then the Jews say, well, what sign do you have that you're doing this? And he says, destroy this temple, and in 3 days it will be rebuilt. Well, that temple took forever to build. What are you talking about? He's talking about his body. His body is the new temple. And our bodies, which will receive him in the Eucharist, are that temple. Okay? Because he told, and this will connect to the scrutinies, he said, it is coming in the time where we will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. So this is incredibly important what he's doing. He's showing that the time of the temple is over, at least in the understanding of what was. And this is a new time, because Jesus is the new sacrifice. All right? And that's going to bring us to the second thing I wanted to talk about. And that has to do with the scrutinies. What is a scrutiny? Well, during this time of Lent, I hope we all realize there are people who are becoming Catholic. There are people who want to enter into the church. And at the Second Vatican Council, we restored what's called RCIA or OCIA, which is an acronym for the right, I just forgot it, the Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults. This is going back to the ancient times, where in the first 3 centuries of the church, Christianity, Catholicism as we know it, was illegal. And if you were found out, you were killed in some pretty brutal ways. All right? So we're restoring what happened back then. Back then, if you wanted to become Catholic, it didn't all just happen at once. It took a long time. Because once you were fully initiated, once you were baptized, once you were confirmed, and once you received the Eucharist, you were signing your death warrant, essentially. And so it was a step-by-step process. And what you're going to see, if you're at the Mass with the scrutiny, is that when it comes to the time of the end of the Liturgy of the Word, a leader is going to take the people who are in RCA and he's going to lead them out of the Mass. And say, well, what's the deal with that? Well, the deepest secrets, or the deepest realities of the faith were considered a secret in case there was someone in the group who had a bad intent or was going to tell Rome about it. And so that's kind of what we're symbolized going in there. They need to be brought deeper into the mystery of the Word until they actually are able to encounter the mystery of the Eucharist. And this became known as the Disciplina Arcani, the discipline of the secret. And so this is what's going on now. Now, of course, Catholicism is not illegal, so we don't technically have to do that. They're allowed to come to the Mass and everything like this. But it's reenacting what people had to go through when Catholicism was illegal and when becoming Catholic meant signing your death warrant. And so that's the scrutinies. They're going to go off during Mass, and they're going to draw deeper into the Word so that that joyful day comes at Easter, when they can receive Jesus in the Eucharist. I hope you've enjoyed this information, and I hope you're all growing closer to Jesus this Lent, and let us look forward to the joy of Easter.